Pick'em Pod coming at you with week 2 picks. We missed week 1. That doesn't mean we didn't.
Yeah.
I mean, that doesn't mean we didn't bet on the games. We definitely had some bets out there. I did okay. Phil, how'd you do?
So this is presented by Canes Insight, and for the first week, since we didn't do the podcast, I did an article on canesinsight.com, and I pretty much just got hit with like close call after close call going in the wrong direction. I'm 6-8 as of right now. We're recording this before Notre Dame actually plays against Louisville, though I have Notre Dame -20. But just a quick rundown of the tough losses I got here. Wake Forest, I had -3.5. They win by 3. Ohio State, 27.5. They decide that they're just not going to play defense the entire second half of that football game. Northwestern, +6.5, down 3, 15 seconds left. Sack fumble. Hunter Johnson is my least favorite player in college football. If he was not their quarterback, if TJ Green doesn't get hurt, Northwestern wins that football game. How Hunter Johnson beat him out for the starting spot, I will never understand. Houston, Oklahoma, over 82.5, goes to 80. Oregon +3.5. Bo Nix chucking up the touchdown at the end of the game to pull it off when they could have just settled for the field goal. I mean, that's 5 of my 8 losses. That's pretty bad. I had a total misread on the Syracuse game. I thought that would go over. They end up shutting out Liberty 24-0. I don't know if that's good defense or if that's just that Syracuse didn't feel like playing offense, but that was my week in a nutshell.
Well, if we're counting the Ohio State not covering as a bad beat, then I will take that too, because I was also on Ohio State -27.5, and their defense, it's not like they stopped playing. They actually looked bad. It was like they were expecting other players to make tackles. It seemed like they didn't care that much. I don't really know what happened. That was disappointing. I'm not going to call that a bad beat.
I wouldn't call it a bad beat. It's just rough. It was like pretty much everything that could have gone one way or the other was going the other way for me this week. And that's what sucked.
Yeah, and that was one where Ohio State was in like just firm grasp of that game. They were never going to lose, and they could have seemed like they could have really run up the score, and I thought they would, especially, new coach, new Ohio State season, new quarterback, just like kind of show out a little bit and run up the score. That did not happen, and they actually gave up kind of late touchdowns to Florida Atlantic. So that was disappointing. I was on Miami, go Canes, +7. I love that bet. Too bad we could not get the win. I also took Colorado -11 against Colorado State. I made a stupid bet, Georgia Southern at LSU. I did not think LSU was going to run up the score because they usually don't. They usually kind of wear you down and just walk away with an easy win, but they stomped Georgia Southern. I had Auburn, Oregon under. That was a very easy under. Even if Oregon had scored on that Hail Mary, that would have still gone under. And I had UCLA +2.5, which was a really dumb bet because their quarterback sucks. I don't know what is up with Dorian Thompson-Robinson. I was some bonehead plays. UCLA was in that game, could have won, but not with that quarterback play. And then I had Tulsa covering +23.5 against Michigan State, and that was a win. So I went 4-3.
There you go. And then in week 0, I had the Miami. I had the under actually in that game, which was a bummer because I wanted Miami to score a touchdown at the end, which would have had me lose the bet. So I win the bet, but really, did I win? No, not really. And then I just bet on the Arizona-Hawaii game. It was bad bets. I figured that Arizona would actually be good under Kevin Sumlin. I was wrong. And Khalil Tate, I guess he's just really not the real deal. That Arizona team is just a mess, and I don't know. I think
Hawaii is they're just.
But
I think Hawaii is way better than we think, because Hawaii last year had no defense whatsoever, and I think they do have a little bit more defense this season, and their offense is clicking better.
That's
than it was
what I thought too. I took
just
under 74, and it went well over 74. So.
Yeah, their game against I think they're playing Oregon State this week, and I think that's over-under is up to 80.
It was at 79 when I looked this morning, so that'll definitely keep going up. What's up?
That could be a fun one if it does keep going up. That might be a good under to hop on.
Oh, and I don't know though. That I wouldn't hop on that one just because Oregon State. It was a game I didn't actually end up picking, but I may or may not have actually picked it in real life. Was the Oregon State what was it? Who were they playing? They had the over in
Oklahoma
this week.
State, right?
Oklahoma State. That's it. I put the over down in that game, and it was at 74, and it went over with 12 minutes left in the fourth quarter. So I would not count out how bad Oregon State's defense is, that Cole McDonald doesn't put up like 60 points on them.
Yeah, no, it's totally possible. I just don't know if Oregon State's going to score, if it's going to continue scoring like it did against Oklahoma State. I don't know. It's a game. I'm definitely not touching it right now just because it's a lot of points. So,
yeah. So anyway, let's jump into these. I said in the article that I was going to do 15 picks each week, so I'm going to keep doing 15 picks
That's
each
a
week.
lot.
I know. I'm going to do 15, though. I'm going to do 15. There's so many college football games. I'm doing 15. We have the point system for anybody who's new this year and wasn't, if you were around last year, you know the point system. But we do 10, 15, 20, depending on how confident we are. We start off with 200. I'm betting 215 here. I actually did pretty well last season. I was 58% last season. That's not bad. I think like the average,
really good. That's good.
To beat the juice, you got to go 52%, and I went 58%. So that was pretty good.
I was hovering around 53, 54%, I think, when it was all said and done. I started off, week 1 was my worst week last year, and then week 2 was my best week. So I'm hoping I can have another repeat week 2.
Yeah, right now I'm treading water. I'm just staying right around 500. Hopefully Notre Dame covers tonight, and then I'll be good. But let's start off here. I want to talk about Marshall at Boise State first, and I know that this has really no implications at all for like ACC or anything like that. But Boise State against Florida State, I don't know if anybody actually watched that game. I watched the whole thing because from the time that Boise State was down 21-6 until the end of the game, you knew Boise State was still going to win that football game. That's how much better they are of a football team than Florida State. So anytime I can watch it and like kind of like know the outcome that Florida State's still going to blow that game, it's so joyous. And I wasn't watching on DVR. I was watching it live.
And then I hopped over to it and was watching for a little bit because he said, Boise State's missing all these chances, and we looked to live bet it. I couldn't get a number from my guy, but Phil did totally call that. I don't think Florida State scored another point. I mean,
they didn't score in the second half. It was 31-19 at
second half. And Florida State's bad, which makes us happy.
Yeah, and the thing was in that game, it was one of those where both teams scored 5 times in the first half. Both teams. Except Boise had 4 field goals and Florida State had 4 touchdowns. But in the heat and humidity and all of that, Boise offense was on the field for so long, they just wore down Florida State. And I loved it. I loved every second of it. I think Hank Bachmeier is the real deal. And I know he was playing against like Florida State's defense, but he looked really good.
Fun to watch.
Yeah, he looked really sound.
He looked impressive.
And this week they're playing against Marshall. And look, I know Marshall like had a pretty good year last year. They beat VMI, put up 56 points. But I think Boise had their bad half of football, and I think Boise comes out, shows that who they are in the Mountain West, that they're the team to beat. I like them to cover 11.5 here, and I also like the over in this game of 55 because I think both these teams score. And Boise showed this week they can give up the big play, and I think Marshall puts up 21, 24, somewhere in there, and Boise scores over 30, which pushes us over 55. So I get my cover, and I get the over. I have 20 on the cover and 15 on over 55.
I'm with you on the over. I think the cover is probably a good play. I would lean that way. But, it's a big win, Florida State, and they're kind of coming. I think there might be a little bit of a come down. So, especially on defense, I can see Marshall scoring. So that's why I love this over so much. I mean, they put up 36 points against FSU, and like you said, a lot of those were field goals early on that could have been touchdowns. With the number at 55, I said this last year a lot. If I can see one of the teams putting up the number on its own, then that's when I really like an over. So at 55, it isn't out of the realm of possibility for Boise State to put up that on their own.
No, not at all. And remember, all the circumstances around Boise State going to Florida State. That game was supposed to be in Jacksonville. It got moved 48 hours beforehand because of the hurricane. So now it's a home game for Florida State. And they came out, they weathered the storm early on, and they won it. So I like this a lot.
And the quarterback play, I think, is really like when you see Bachmeier play the way he played, that gives you confidence. So
yeah. What do you got on the over?
I got 15 on it.
Okay. Yeah, that's what I have too. So that's my only Friday night game.
That Bachmeier he has like a brother named like Lion and Tiger.
It's amazing.
Buck, and then his name is Hank. It's like, why didn't he get an animal name? That confused me.
I don't know, man. He was the run to the litter. Couldn't help it. Will. Do you have any other Friday night games?
I don't believe so. When is Army Michigan? I think that's noon Saturday. That's my next game. I did this in order of the schedule. So
all right. Well, I got one before you. I'm gonna do Ohio at Pittsburgh. I have Pittsburgh -5.5. I got 15 on it. Pittsburgh looked dreadful against Virginia. Now here was my thing. This is another one I called. I picked Virginia. They were -2.5. They win 30-14. Easy bet first week. Like my wins that I got this week were easy wins, and that was an easy win. And that opening line was Pittsburgh favored. Now, let's take a timeout and let's think. Everybody's saying Virginia's going to win the Coastal. And then all of a sudden, Pittsburgh's favored week one. Like, that's not how that works. So I had a feeling like Bryce Perkins, Virginia, just a better team. They come out, they demolish Pittsburgh. I mean, that was a horrible football game. But that doesn't mean that Ohio is going to keep it within a touchdown at Pittsburgh. I mean, it's week one. I think a lot of people forget week one. Like, what is week one? Week one's like, it's when teams that are bad will play really good. Teams that are good will play really bad. It's always the hardest one to predict. Ohio gave up 20 points to Rhode Island. I mean, it doesn't give me confidence in their defense. I know Pittsburgh's offense isn't exactly very good, but this is a MAC versus a ACC team, and the ACC school
Coastal champion last year
from last season. And I know that they lost last week, but they lost to the favorite in the Coastal. Sorry, everybody listening on Canes Insight, but I'm just reading it off the template here. I don't believe that, but they lost to the favorite in the Coastal. So, like, how are we faulting this team that much where they're a 5.5-point favorite? I got 15 on Pittsburgh. I think they cover this easily. I think they win by 2 touchdowns at least.
Yeah, I like this pick. The Pitt game was ugly, and I don't know. I don't really trust Pittsburgh. I was actually, if anything, I thought Virginia was a little overhyped and kind of liked Pittsburgh last week when they became the underdog. But after seeing them play, I can't really have any confidence in them. But I do like the pick. They're probably now it's an overreaction, and that's where I think week 2 has a lot of value. It's just because there's these week ones. You see one game, and it's like, all right, Pittsburgh's now the worst team in football. Like, they're gonna barely beat Ohio. So I do feel you. I'm not hopping on it with you. Last season, whenever I hopped on a bet with Phil, he'd bring it up on the podcast. He'd make some really great points. He'd convince me. I would hop on. I don't think we won a single one of those bets.
So you're not hopping on this one.
It was a curse. So. As well as you might convince me today, I'm going to stick with the picks I have.
Perfect. That's what I like to hear. Please don't hop on.
I won't.
No hop-ons. All right. Well, you got your next game I don't have, so why don't you go ahead and take
Well, you can hop on this with me because I do really like this one. I'm going to take Army plus 23 at Michigan. A big reason for this is that Michigan, when they play like these kind of lesser teams, they don't show up. They show up in big games, and we can see this last season where they played Nebraska, Nebraska was hyped at the time. They won 56-10. They blow out Wisconsin 38-13, Penn State 42-17, like big wins. And then they would play like Maryland. They won 42-21. They like beat Northwestern by 3, I think. There was some. I think Indiana they might not have beaten by a whole lot. And when they play against Middle Tennessee last weekend, they didn't cover the 23 points. And now Army's coming, and Army is an option team that is going to run the ball a ton. Michigan likes to run the ball a ton. So I can see Michigan being in control of this game with a 2-touchdown lead, 17-point lead, even 20-point lead or a 3-touchdown lead, and just kind of sit on it, run the ball. And I just think the clock is going to burn quickly in a game like this. So I really like Army plus 23.
Yeah, this is a short game for sure. This is going to be one that's going to be over very quickly. However, Minute Rice is a terrible football team. They were terrible last year. They're terrible this year. They're always in that. ESPN does their bottom 10. Rice is always in that bottom 10 with good reason. Rice is a bad football team. Army looked terrible against Rice. They looked hard. Their offense, they could not run the ball. Their option looked really bad. And it's weird because Hopkins is back, and Hopkins was so good last year for Army. He had 1,000 yards passing, 1,000 yards rushing. He was so good. Team ends up being ranked 19 in the country, and they come out and they kind of laid an egg against Rice. It was the first game on Thursday night. It was a big game. So I'm not confident enough, but I do agree with where your logic is.
Well, it's just like a perfect bad week 1 performance. And then they'll go and play Michigan, who I think Michigan won't be as ready and kind of juiced up, especially they do have a bye week next week, but their next game is against Wisconsin, which would be a much bigger game. It's a noon start. I just think this is going to be a slow kind of grog of a game. And if Army scores like 1 touchdown, I feel pretty good about this one. Because 23 is a lot of points with 2 teams that like to run the ball.
I agree.
I like it. I only got 10 on it, but it's one I see that one hitting.
All right, my next bet here, if I had a house, I'd put my house on it. If I had a family, I'd put my whole family on it. I don't even care. I'd put everything on this bet. This is the ultimate overreaction from week 1 to week 2, in my opinion. I think it's absolutely absurd. I think it's so stupid. We have Syracuse going to Maryland. Syracuse is favored by 1 point. 1 point. You're essentially getting Syracuse in a pick'em with a team that was projected 3.5 wins at the beginning of the season in Maryland. 3.5. Syracuse is the team that's supposed to contend with Clemson for the ACC Atlantic. And they are now 1 point favorites against a team because Josh Jackson is their quarterback and they beat Howard 79-0. Will and I could go out there and beat Howard 79-0. I'm not impressed. I don't care. Syracuse is the number 22 team in the country. They shut out Liberty. Yeah, the offense didn't look good, but I don't care. They're going to beat Maryland. They're going to beat them bad. I'd probably take this at 14. Like, seriously. 1 point. I can't believe it. I can't. This is such an overreaction. And I'm so confused as to what I am missing. And maybe I'm missing something really big and people are going to laugh at me when I'm homeless next week because I just said I'd put my house. But like I said, I also don't have a house. I just cannot believe that Maryland is favored in this game. Or not favored, but I can't believe there's a 1 point game for Syracuse. I just can't believe it.
Yeah, I mean, it's a small number. I know that they're the second team in the Atlantic, but no one is actually saying it's a toss-up between Clemson and Syracuse. Like it's Clemson's division. Syracuse might be the second best team, but I don't know. Maryland is one of those teams that will get a sneaky win like this. They, how they beat Texas the opener of the past 2 seasons. They almost beat Ohio State at the end of last year. So Maryland is one of those teams that trips people up. It can be a tough win. So, I mean, I see where you're going. Again, I will not hop on it with you. It does seem rather low. And like you're saying, it's a great reaction bet after week 1. So.
It's such a great reaction bet.
And you had a very good week 2 last season, I believe. I think we both did. You didn't have as great of a week 2 as I did because mine was amazing. I went 10-2. But you also had.
I went 9-3. I think it was like 10-2 and 9-3. We still have it somewhere. So. I mean, I could just easily look it up, but just in case we're wrong, I don't want to do that. But I got 20 on this. If we were doing more, I think this is my lock of the week.
You have a $20 house.
I have a $20 house. I'll tell you what. If we were playing, I don't even care. Go ahead, Will. What's your next game?
My next game is going to be. I'm looking for my next Rutgers. I mean, Rutgers is still in the mix as that team you just always want to bet against. I almost wanted to bet UMass to cover. I think what was it, 14 points, or it wasn't that much this last week. Rutgers was losing, but did end up coming back and winning. So they did beat UMass. Good for Rutgers, but this is a team that I just don't see winning any games. This maybe. I mean, they've already won 1 game, but Bowling Green is a lousy team, and Kansas State is favored by 23.5. And I like this. I like this for Kansas State because Kansas State is right in that position where they're in that kind of slosh of mediocre Big 12 teams that I think is going to really need a big win, a confident win. And there's no reason why they can't beat this team by like 5 touchdowns. I think if they don't cover, it will be them kind of letting up and maybe pulling starters. But I think this is Kansas State isn't even that good. That's not what I'm trying to say. They don't need to be that good to just win by 23.5 points. So I don't know if you looked at this game at all, but Bowling Green might as well be an FCS team at this point. So.
Yeah, it didn't make it into my 15 picks. I tried to keep it. I tried to keep it things that I actually want to turn my TV to. I don't know if I want to watch Bowling Green at K-State.
Yeah, I really think Kansas State, if they, I don't know, moving into the Big 12, like the Big 12 has such a weird, you know what I mean, with kind of Iowa State, TCU,
Iowa State looked
Oklahoma
bad
State
last weekend. Wow.
Yeah, they did.
Triple overtime over Northern Iowa at home. Yikes. Let's unrank that team, huh?
I was high on them too. I thought they were going to be really good. But again, week one, so we can't overreact. Mm-hmm. I just think Kansas State needs to get every win they can and make sure it's a big score, because I think they're going to have a tough time in the Big 12.
Yeah. All right, my next game, this one might be crazy pick. This one might, I don't know why I'm doing this, but I'm feeling good about it. I got $10 on it. So maybe I'm not feeling that good, but this is one of those like random games where we didn't get anything from either team week one. I got USF going to Georgia Tech. I actually like USF to cover in this game. 5.5 points for USF, who I know got their doors blown off by Wisconsin. It was 49-0. But if you watch that football game, Wisconsin wore them down as it went on, which you expect a Big Ten team to do to a lowly American athletic team. So I think that when you look at this, like who they were playing, Wisconsin was only favored by 11 and people had higher hopes for USF. So USF is kind of being punished here. Whereas like Georgia Tech showed at least like an ounce of life, maybe. Did they show an ounce of life? I mean,
I guess would say you give them life for sure. You would say they had life. I mean, they're playing Clemson. So it's like, what can you expect?
They had something going on there. So the way I look at it is Georgia Tech is getting more credit for playing better against a team that was favored by a lot against them. They put up 14 points in a game where I didn't think they'd score over 7, but they were like late touchdowns. And then, I think USF is kind of being overlooked because of how badly they got beat, but we're not looking at final score here. I want to look at the process of the game. And Georgia Tech's offense in the first year without Paul Johnson didn't look good at all. And USF was playing a way better Wisconsin team than people are giving Wisconsin credit for. Cone looked amazing against USF. And I know it was USF, but last year the Wisconsin quarterbacks didn't look great against anybody. So the fact that he looked great against USF gives me a lot of hope for this team. I like USF to cover this game plus 5.5. I got 10. Maybe don't jump on this one with me, everybody, but I'm feeling pretty good enough to put it in my 15 picks for the week.
Yeah, I don't know. Like you said, we didn't get a lot from either of these teams. It's hard to, when you're playing a team that's so much better than you, it's hard to gauge your talent, against a team that you might, be more competitive with. But you look at the national championship game last year. I mean, how many points did Alabama put up on Clemson? They put up 16 points, and Georgia Tech comes in and puts up 14. So Georgia Tech or Alabama at this point.
I mean, honestly, with how Alabama looked in the first half against Duke, I might take Georgia Tech.
So I don't know. It's hard. It's like these games they were two big blowouts. It's hard to pick up reads on that. So I commend you for taking that risk, and best of luck to you.
Thanks, man. I appreciate that. Next game, I think last year we'd always pick top 25 games. Will, I don't know if you got anything on this game, but one of two top 25 matchups on the week. We got Texas A&M traveling to Clemson. Texas A&M was one of my wins last week. I had them minus 33.5 over Texas State. They won by 34, but hey, the touchdown was really late. They were winning. That was a lock, the whole game. Right now, I have the spread at 18, and I actually like A&M to cover this against Clemson. I think they play them tough.
I disagree completely. I got Clemson covering 18. So our first disagreement of the season. And when we disagreed last season, I usually won. You did better than me overall, but on the ones we went head-to-head on disagreements, I came out on top more often than not.
I think this time it's going to be 31-13 finals, so we just push.
I don't think so. I really don't. I think this Clemson team is this Clemson team is special. We have Trevor Lawrence playing in this game. I know last year, I think Trevor Lawrence did have some play, but it was still Kelly Bryant's team at that point in the season. and it was at Texas A&M, a really tough place to play. Now Clemson is at home. They played Georgia Tech last week. This is the first big game of their, quest to defend their championship, and I really think they're going to be able to kind of blow Texas A&M.
I don't think they're going to. I think Texas A&M is a
18
good
points.
team.
I think Texas A&M is a great team. I think they're probably maybe a top 10 team in the country. They could be, but it's kind of like with Notre Dame. They went 12-0 last year. Notre Dame went 12-0. College football playoff. Goes to play Clemson and loses 30-3.
But Notre Dame was trash. I think Texas A&M this year is better than Notre Dame last year. Everybody knew Notre Dame was going to lose that game by 107 points. If you did not put down money on Clemson to cover that spread, I mean, what were you thinking? We didn't do a podcast before the bowl games, but that would have been my lock of like bowl season.
What about Bama?
I think they hit Bama in the mouth. I don't think Bama was ready for it.
I'm just saying, man, like Bama was supposed to be like the number one team with Tua and that offense, everything they had going. I'm just saying Clemson is you can be a top 4 team in the country and not, cover 18 points against Clemson. Like I strongly believe that. I think, and then Clemson's at home. This is their first, like I said, first big test of this season. Georgia Tech is like, it's hard to get up, and they still won. 54-14 or 56-14 or something. So I really like Clemson here. Like this could be a good game for a little bit, but this is 4 quarters of Trevor Lawrence at home. I'm sorry.
Can we just say one thing too about the decision Dabo Swinney made? Anybody who watched the Missouri-Wyoming game, he absolutely made the right decision getting rid of Kelly Bryant. Oh my God. Kelly Bryant against Wyoming. You got to remember that guy went to a national championship game. And against Wyoming, like Wyoming made him look pedestrian. I mean, Kelly Bryant was chucking up frustrated passes. They had the ball on the 3-yard line going in before half. He fumbles with like 5 seconds. And then Horse collars the guy to give Wyoming a field goal. And then the first drive out of halftime, he chucks up a ball into the end zone that gets intercepted that he should across the field. What are you thinking? Like Trevor Lawrence, very sound quarterback. Kelly Bryant, showing his frustration over there in Missouri. So I just wanted to throw that out there. Right decision with Trevor Lawrence.
Guess who beat Texas A&M on the road? It was Kelly Bryant last year.
I know. But Clemson's like you said, Clemson's a very good football team. I do think Texas A&M gets their licks though on offense. I think they're going to score points against Clemson. I think it's going to happen. And I think that, yes, this is going to be – I do think that Clemson wins this game by double digits. I just think 18 is too much because I think that Clemson, if they score 35, that means A&M only scores 17, and I think it's more of like a 35-21, 35-24 game.
Oh, I think it's like 42-21.
Maybe you're right.
Something
How
like
much
that.
you got on this one?
15.
All right, I have 10 for A&M. How much did you have on K-State?
15.
Okay, got to keep up.
Kind of do 15 on most of these unless I feel particularly good. I mean, it's still week 2 though, so I don't have any. Actually, I think I have one that I've got like 20 on this week.
There you go.
I think you'll have 20 on it with me also.
Probably. Let's see. Do I have any more? I have 20s. One game that we're going to quickly gloss over just because I have to throw it in here because I bet this team, they're under on the season, and I'm very confident in their under on the season. Indiana, they go out, they beat Ball State. They looked terrible playing against Ball State.
I considered this.
Yeah, Eastern Illinois is a 34-point dog to Indiana, and I don't care how bad Eastern Illinois is. They keep this within 34. They don't lose this game by 5 touchdowns, so I got 10 on Eastern Illinois at plus 34, but we don't need to really talk about this game. You should bet Indiana season under.
I had this one written down, but sometimes when you're a team like Indiana and you get to play an FCS team, that's like your one time, especially when you're at kind of the bottom of the Big Ten. It's like this is your one time to just stop a team and score a bunch of touchdowns, make a bunch of plays, sacks, tackle. I mean, big hits, everything. And it's like this is our week to have fun playing football before we get into like a gritty.
Before we lose the rest of our football games.
Exactly. So
now remember, also, Indiana's over-under was set at 6 on the season. Maryland's was 3.5. Indiana was projected to beat Maryland as one of their wins, and now Maryland is a 1-point dog to Syracuse. I just need people to understand how ridiculous that Maryland-Syracuse line is, but continue, Will.
I'm just saying, I like, as bad as Indiana is, and 34 points is a lot. It's not that crazy for them to put up 50, 60, just because it's a big.
Eastern Illinois might put up 35.
Maybe they do. Because I considered this. I almost pulled the trigger on this, and I had to talk myself out of it, just being like, I don't know anything about Eastern Illinois, so. Yeah,
I just know Indiana looked like crap against Ball State, and I was pumped. I was like, "Damn, they might lose this one. They might max out at 1 win on the season."
See, I didn't want to be the one overreacting to the Ball State loss.
I'm not overreacting. This Indiana team's bad.
Yeah, but again, 1 week, Phil. 1 week.
1 week. No, I agree. But this team was bad before the week even started. Moving past that, the next game that I have is Florida State and Louisiana Monroe. Will, do you have one before that, or should we go there?
I don't know. My next one is Cincinnati at Ohio State. So,
all right, let's talk about Florida State first, and then we'll go into your Cincinnati, Ohio State, because I actually have no idea where Cincinnati, Ohio State is on my list. So let's talk about Florida State, Louisiana Monroe first. I watched Florida State's defense fall apart, but the offense looked much better. And that's why in this game, I like the over of 60.5. I have 15 on it. I think Louisiana Monroe gets 14, 17 points. And then I think Florida State scores the rest. This is one of those games where their offense with Blackman looked really good. He was early on. They were getting the big plays. They were pumped up. They were beating Boise State down the field. There was a fumble recovery touchdown. They ended up getting called back, thankfully. They looked pretty good. They still put up 31 points on a pretty good Boise State defense that did lock down in the second half. But I think that they do put up points against Louisiana Monroe. I think they also give up points to Louisiana Monroe. Louisiana Monroe is one of those teams, like, they're not terrible. Like, they're not the worst. They're definitely not, like, I don't see them coming anywhere near beating Florida State, but they put up 31 points against Grambling, which is what you're supposed to do. Only gave up 9. So I like this game to be like I said, like maybe like a 42-17 or something like that. Florida State's going to come out though, and they're going to beat this team pretty good. So I like the over of 60.5.
Yeah, that makes sense. It does seem like Florida State could be a good over team. Like what you're saying, their offense does look like it's much improved since last year, and their defense still has a lot of holes, and they got worn down pretty quickly. So that could be something to look for every week.
All right, give me something on this Ohio State game because I had nothing.
I feel really good about this one. I hope Ohio State isn't the team to I lose on every week. I forget which team it was last year. It might have been Michigan. I kept betting on Michigan last year, and they kept having these dopey performances where they won by 10 points against a terrible team. So yeah, that's why I do like that Army plus 23. So Cincinnati is going to Ohio State, and the over-under is set at 55.5. I really like this over. I'm actually going to up it from 15 to 20. After watching the Ohio State FAU game, they let me down completely by not covering, but what I saw from this was a defense that needs a lot of work. It wasn't even that FAU was playing that well on offense. They would kind of leave guys open. They didn't finish plays. I don't know what it was, but they just kind of looked soft. Did you watch much of that FAU game?
I didn't watch much of it, but the Ohio State defense, I watched towards the end because I had the minus 27.5. So I wanted to see if they would stop Florida Atlantic's high-powered offense. And yeah, you're right. They just looked
really slow.
They wanted to just leave the field.
And maybe that was just a week one thing, and I'm looking too far into this. And then once that game was over, I saw a headline on ESPN, the Justin Fields era has started. And I was like, wait, this is all positive. He threw for 5 touchdowns.
That's because it's ESPN.
Right. But I'm just saying, their offense was really good. And Justin Fields, he had command immediately. He was switching things up at the line. It looks like his offense trusts him. it was his first game as quarterback. He felt like he has a grasp of this offense. So with as much trust as I have in their offense and really now very little faith in their defense, especially against Cincinnati, who looked pretty damn good against UCLA, an over-under at 55.5, I really like this one. Ohio State could put up, get into the 40s or 50s, and I do think Ohio State has a lot of holes in that defense where Cincinnati could put up, 3 touchdowns. It just seems low. It really does seem low at 55.5.
This is a perfect lead-in to what my next game is. So if you don't mind, I'm going to jump to my next game, which is
UCF
right into it, at Florida Atlantic. I do agree with you
that it's a very that's a low number. And
I agree with you. What I worry is that maybe the defense gets a stern talking to and then does come ready to play against a better team in Cincinnati. I look at this UCF Florida Atlantic game as an overreaction to people thinking Florida Atlantic's offense is good because they put up 24 points against Ohio State, which I just don't think is true. Like you said, Ohio State's defense just played really, really bad. And last year, I believe you and me went like 9-1 on UCF games or something like that. We did really well with UCF. I didn't bet them week 1. They're only 10
points.
That's it.
I'm 20 on this as well.
I'm putting 20 on this. I think that's an easy bet. Wimbush looked great for UCF. And again, Florida A&M, let's not overreact, but they put up 48 points in the first half, and then Wimbush didn't play. Killins is going to run all over Florida Atlantic. I think UCF wins this game easily. I mean, look, if you're trying to replace Mackenzie Milton, what's the best way to do it? With somebody like Wimbush, who can just come out and run a similar offense. So I like them a lot. I think they win this game easily. And anybody who's looking further ahead, I know on FanDuel has what they call games of the year. And I'm giving you some input here. One of their games of the year is UCF at Pittsburgh. And UCF is a 2-point favorite, and the line has not moved. So if you're looking for something, I feel really good about that one. That's not for another couple weeks, but that's pretty low to give UCF, especially for a Pittsburgh team that I don't think is very good, despite the fact that here I am picking them against Ohio this week. But if they're 5.5-point favorites at home over Ohio, you're going to tell me they should only be 2-point underdogs against UCF. So yeah, that's looking a little far ahead, but that's a bet you can make today on FanDuel. So think about that, bettors out there. It could be worth your money to go and bet on UCF over Pittsburgh in the future, but definitely bet UCF over Florida Atlantic this week.
Yeah, UCF was one of our teams last. It was UCF and Duke that really were kind of our moneymakers last season. People kind of caught on to Duke, and that didn't last the whole season. But yeah, UCF, this is a team that likes to blow teams out too. Once they don't kind of take their foot off the gas, as some other teams might. So I can't agree more. This is my lock. This is the only one I had 20 on, and then I that Ohio State over at 55.5. I love that one too. So I think those are my only two 20 games this week. But I love it also.
All right. My next one, another one we can just touch on briefly, but really it's just for me to take a couple shots at the SEC, which is always fun to do whenever you get a chance to do it. I got Georgia State minus 8.5 over Furman. Yes, everybody laugh, giggle, whatever, but Georgia State just beat Tennessee in Tennessee, which is hilarious, and they beat them by 8 points. And I know that this could be a letdown game, but you're playing Furman, who doesn't even play games every year. So I like Georgia State to come out to beat Furman by multiple touchdowns, because I think this is it's kind of like that Appalachian State team that beat Michigan way back when. That was a good Appalachian State team. And yes, Tennessee is not Michigan, and they don't have that same people don't think of Tennessee the same way they think of Michigan. But
people are pretty high on Tennessee this year.
It's pretty hilarious. I mean, that's a hilarious loss, and I think that
it's so good, especially with the Wyoming Missouri game happening. Just the pairing of that is, and then South Carolina UNC, all three of those games happening in the first week of the season.
And we're going to be talking about UNC later, and UNC didn't really do anything to impress me. South Carolina is just a bad. Those are three teams that really aren't very good. That's all it comes down to. So I like Georgia State to cover this 8.5. I'm surprised it's so low. I mean, I really like them to cover this. I got 20 on it. I think it's an easy cover.
You have 20. Yeah, that's a team that I don't know that well, and like you said, the come down possibility is very much there. Beating an SEC school in your first week, you're all hyped up, and you might not. You might kind of feel like you can beat anyone and not really pay attention to what Furman's doing. Now, I don't know anything about Furman, but this might also fire up Furman. Hey, we're about to play a team that just beat Tennessee. If we beat them, you know what that means. So I'm gonna stay away here. But
I just think that this is a game where they could play bad for like 2 quarters and still win by 2 touchdowns. I think that's what that is.
Yeah, it's. I mean, that's. I didn't really mention this in the Clemson game, but I really feel like with Clemson A&M, like it could be close in the first half. Maybe it's tied at halftime, and then I can see Clemson like coming out in the second half. Like, all right, let's score 3 touchdowns back to back.
It's like what Alabama did against Duke, where it was like 14-3 at half, and then it was 42-3 final.
Mm-hmm.
What's your next game, Will? I got 5 left.
All righty, let's see. I got Iowa minus 20.5 at Rutgers. Until I see it from Rutgers, I'm going to pretty much pick them to not cover the spread. They did show some signs of life at the end of last season, and then I don't even know who they played. I know they played UMass, and it's like, okay, they beat UMass. They covered against UMass. Great. But
they're also losing 21-7 in that game.
Yes, and now they're actually playing like a Big Ten team in Iowa who, actually could be pretty good this season. And so there's no reason for me to think that it won't be like a 42-0 game just because that's what Rutgers does. And so at 20.5, that's not even 3 touchdowns. So give me that all day long. I got 10 on it.
And I know Iowa is one of those teams. The reason I stay away from this because Iowa is one of those teams that'll grind you down and they try to play defensive and they don't score much. But Rutgers is that bad.
Yeah. When they play a big opponent, and they still are going to run the ball and pound it and grind you, but it's going to be so much easier because they're playing Rutgers. So again, I'm until Rutgers proves otherwise, that is something to look to every week. Mm-hmm. I'm excited for it.
Yeah. All right. My next game I got here is one of 2 money line bets I'm doing this week. I got 2 money line dogs that I like. I have North Texas. They're going to SMU.
Ooh, I consider this one. Yeah.
I have North Texas at plus 160. I like this. I have 15 on it. And I don't know. I mean, I could take the points and I could play it safe.
Plus 5?
What did you say?
What's the spread? Is it 5?
I think it's 5. Yeah. Hang on. Let me look. Let me get it up here, Will. Talk about North Texas and why.
I don't know. I feel like you're safer. I think you're safer taking the points. I didn't consider the money line. I was considering because North Texas looked pretty good this week. I have a friend who went to North Texas, so I ended up watching.
That's why I'm taking North Texas.
A little bit of the game. Yeah, no, I think it's a good pick. I think the 5 points is solid. But if you really feel confident, hey, go money line, see what you can do.
Yeah, I just think North Texas is the better team. Like, so I wanted to. I mean, yeah, it's not going to change that much, but I don't want to. I'll take my juice here because I think this is a team that wins. It was the same thing with Boise last week. Like I was saying, Boise's going to win. Boise's going to win. Boise's going to win. Boise's going to win. And then the bet I end up putting down is Boise like plus 5.5. I should have just taken Boise straight up because like I was so confident in it. And when I saw this line originally, like SMU beat Arkansas State 37-30. I know North Texas gave up a lot of points to Abilene Christian, but there were people who thought Abilene Christian could really play with that North Texas team. So yeah, I like North Texas. Just went straight up. I got 15 on it at plus 160. I'm still trying to find the spread. Sorry, it takes so long when you go this way. It's actually 4 points. SMU is favored by 4.
All right, yeah, that sounds pretty good. I'll hop to a game where I kind of considered doing money line, but it's at 5 points, so I decided to take the points. This is Nebraska at Colorado. Nebraska's getting a lot of hype this year. They slipped into the top 25. I think they're 24.
Yeah, they don't deserve it.
They do not deserve it. They won 4 games last year, and I think Colorado only won 5 games last year. But hey, Colorado also beat Nebraska last year by 5 points. And, of course, we have different teams this time around. But, I mean, Adrian Martinez was supposed to be like a Heisman dark horse and he didn't do much against South Alabama. He didn't even throw a touchdown.
And they didn't play good against South Alabama. That whole team didn't look good against South Alabama.
They won by 2 touchdowns. That's it. Against that's supposed to be your cupcake. Let's get the season off to a hot start. They gave up 3 touchdowns. So as much hype as there is around Nebraska, it's I don't know. You got to hold off. And I think Colorado is one of those teams that because they lost so many games last year, people are kind of writing off Colorado. But I think the Buffs are actually – I think they can win this game. And I have a lot of confidence in Steven Montez, more so than Adrian Martinez. I mean, Montez is a senior who understands the offense. And Colorado's defense isn't that good. And that's where I worry here. But I kind of feel good about Colorado being able to score pretty easily. So they beat them last year on the road. Now Colorado's at home with a senior quarterback against the Nebraska team that looked pretty bad against South Alabama. So I do like this maybe money line, but I'm going to be safe and take the +5 for the Buffs.
+5. All right, I like that. And how much you got on that?
I got 10 on it.
10 on it. Yeah, I'll do my last money line here. What I have is actually Fresno at home against Minnesota. They're a 3-point dog, so I think it's more worth my while to take the money line here. I got it at +140. I think they win this game. Minnesota almost lost while we're talking about teams almost losing to teams. They almost lost to South Dakota State. Was it South Dakota State or South Dakota? Either way, I mean, I got no 28-21. They really easily could have lost that football game. I think they were losing 21-14 at one point. I think that Fresno gets the win. They're at home. I think Fresno's a pretty, they won the Mountain West last year. I think they're a pretty solid football team. And I like them. I like them as a small dog.
They look pretty good against USC.
They did they?
I mean, USC looked bad. And I don't really know if it was Fresno State doing anything that, I don't know. USC is such a mess. It's such a just confusing, mind-boggling situation because they should be so much better. And man, the second half USC just looked dead. And I don't know whether to give Fresno State credit for that or is Clay
USC is favored over Stanford this week
of all time. I know. I thought about it. I'm
Stanford looked horrible against Northwestern.
Stanford looked
PJ
really
Green doesn't
bad.
Get hurt. Northwestern wins that game probably 21-10.
I mean, Stanford and USC, both teams they both look like they don't want to win football games. And I have a lot of problems with David Shaw on the Stanford side, so I'm not touching it. But it is funny that USC is favored after their great win against Fresno State this week. Fresno State is a solid team, but USC should be so much better than they are.
Here's the thing. This is what always blows my mind about college football. USC beats Fresno by 8. Fresno's going to USC. USC is now 3-point favorites over Stanford, who's ranked, while Fresno is 3-point home dogs to Minnesota, who just won by 7 over South Dakota. It doesn't make sense to me, and that's I'm missing the logic there. So I think Fresno is an easy cover. I think they win. So I just put 10 on it for them to win.
There you go.
All right.
We'll see. I think, where am I going next?
I have an LOL game. Tennessee, again, they're favored over BYU.
Consider that too.
I don't get it. And I know BYU didn't exactly look great against Utah, but Utah's supposed to be the class of the Pac-12. So, why are we This is another one. You're faulting a team. It's like USF versus Wisconsin. You're faulting a team
did not look
better. Thought they were better. What?
BYU didn't look all that bad. I mean, they lost, but it wasn't some.
The final score is worse than how the game went. So,
that's what. Yeah, it was a commendable fight. It was close for a little bit there, and they didn't the eye test doesn't come up negative for BYU.
And I really think that this is a Tennessee team that, they're going to come out, they're going to be pissed off. Sometimes you just aren't good enough. But that sometimes you're just not good. I mean, that's what we thought with Miami all of last year. We thought they were going to turn it around on their 4-game losing streak. It's like, well, they're going to be mad this time. Yeah, they sure looked mad because they just kept handing the ball to the other team. Like sometimes you're just not good, and I think Tennessee is just not good. You don't lose to Georgia State and then beat BYU. I think BYU beats them.
I agree with that you have to have at least some talent. You can't just be angry. Anger is not going to win football game. But it was week 1. Tennessee should be able. I mean, this should be it's a toss-up game for me. Like I can see it going either way, and I did consider it, but I can see Tennessee bouncing back, handling BYU, or I can see BYU just like running away with this game. I really like this one for me. Totally up in the air.
I got 10 on BYU plus 3.5. And my last 2 games, one's a top 10 game, and the other one's Miami. So if you got anything that's not those two, let's hear it.
I do. I have New Mexico State plus 54 at Alabama. Alabama, they do score a lot of points, but this number is so big. I don't see it. I think I went through last year their schedule, and they only covered 54 points once. And that's a very special game to Phil and I when they played Ole Miss. And we kept hammering the under. They scored like 50 points in the first half, and then they ended up winning 62-7. So they covered 55 in that game, and that was their biggest cover of the entire season. I'll just go with like Louisville last year. They won 54-14. Arkansas State 57-10. Ole Miss, that was the 62-7 game at 55, but that was them actually taking their foot off the gas pedal, if you can believe that. Phil and I just kept hammering the under. It was beautiful.
It was amazing. I remember that over-under got to a point where it was
like
at 84,
88.
And we had the under at like plus 220. That's how ridiculous it was.
It was so good because we just knew they weren't going to like continue with this pace, and they don't. Louisiana Lafayette, 56-14. Arkansas, 65-31. The Citadel, 50-17. So Alabama consistently puts up 50-point games. Those were 4 50-point games at least, or 5 50-point games at least, and they all didn't cover 54 points because they always pull their starters. They always end up giving late touchdowns to the other team or late field goal. So I really like this plus 54. It's such a big number, and they just never. That's just not how they play. They take
how much you got on it?
I got 15. I want to do 20, but it's week 2. I got to save some money if I end up losing it all this week.
Like you did last year.
Did we have the money system in week 1 last year? I don't know if we did.
Yeah, we did. We did. We absolutely started off with 200. Everybody started with 200.
I was down to like $60.
Yeah, you were in trouble.
No, I wasn't. Right away. I probably had 100 left, but then I like doubled it the next week. I was right back. So
there you go. Well, are we on to our top 10 game and our Miami game, or you got anything else?
I have one other game.
All right, let's hear it.
Nevada is going to Oregon, and the over-under is set at 62. Thoughts on this before I say what I like?
Nevada, Oregon, 62. I'd probably say the under.
Well, I'm going over. Oregon has a high-powered offense despite what we saw against Auburn. They didn't score that much, but Auburn also has like one of the best defenses in the country. So I'm not worried about Oregon's offense, especially when playing Nevada. And then, Oregon's defense actually did play well against Auburn, but Auburn, that was a true freshman quarterback who was figuring out their offense. And
he figured it out.
Oh, yeah. By the end of the game, it was figured out. So I don't know if that defense is also really fired up for that, opener against the SEC team. I don't know if they're going to be as fired up against Nevada in week 2. I think Nevada should be able to break 20 points. And if that happens, Oregon should, they'll be in the 40s. So they could possibly go into the 50s. So I really like this. This could be like a 55-30 game, like it could just really go up. So I really like this one. I'm only going to do 10 on it, but I like it.
All right, man. That's that one. I mean, I hear what you're saying. I don't have a take on that game. I don't have a take because we didn't get to see what – I mean, Nevada put up points against, Purdue, right? But,
Yeah, Nevada beat Purdue. The Nevada looked capable on offense, and their defense isn't all that special. And when they gave up a pretty good amount of points to Purdue, and now they're facing Oregon, who I really think Oregon can really have their way. So I see this being Oregon gets a couple stops or maybe a pick six, and then once Oregon's up, 10, 14 points, they just kind of go back scoring. I could be wrong. Maybe Oregon's defense is the real deal, but we'll have to see.
Let's go now to the LSU. We're going to save the Miami game for last. Let's go to LSU at Texas. LSU is a 5-point favorite in this game. This is a top 10 matchup on paper. I don't know if it means it's a top 10 matchup in reality. Will, what are you thinking about LSU and Texas?
I was really impressed with LSU because I had bet Georgia Southern to cover that this week, and it was like first quarter, I was like, oh, they're not covering. Like, there's no way. Like, LSU, their offense was so impressive. And then Texas, they also looked good. So I think this could be a top 10 matchup. I have a bet on this game. I don't love the bet. I only have 10 on it. What are you thinking? I mean, I have my bet is on the over-under, which is at 52.5. The spread, I think it's about right. I don't feel safe taking either side.
I got LSU -5 here. I only have 10 on it, but I do think LSU goes into Texas, and I think they win this game. I think that they win it.
That's my lean because they're impressive.
They are. Their offense looked much better than people thought they were going to look. And like for as bad as the SEC looked this week, I know they were playing Georgia Southern, but remember Georgia State beat Tennessee at Tennessee. I'm going to bring that up as many times as I can. But like I know they were playing Georgia Southern, but they really demolished that football team, and they didn't look like they had kinks. Like you had Alabama, who didn't look that good against Duke early, and yet Duke's a better team than Georgia Southern, but like Alabama didn't look that good. And like Texas, they came out and they beat up on Louisiana Tech like right away. I mean, they came out, they hit him in the mouth, and they never relinquished it. But it was only 7-0 at the end of the first quarter, and then Texas got 2 quick touchdowns right at the start of the second quarter, and that's when it was over. But I think that LSU is the better football team, and we see it every year. Texas ranked so high, Texas not so good. And so I think that LSU, for them, they have to kind of, even though they're an SEC school and they're one of the better known SEC schools, they have to kind of earn their way into a top 10 preseason ranking. Texas is always, for some reason, ranked higher than they should be. Every year it feels like. So I mean,
Texas did beat Georgia last year.
Oh, they did. No, I know.
Georgia
I hear you.
A fringe playoff game. I mean, people were saying Georgia should have gotten in over Notre Dame last year for the playoff, and Texas goes and beats Georgia. So I mean, Texas is no scrub in this game either. And I get what you're saying. And LSU does appear to be more talented, but with being at home in that environment, I can see Texas being fired up. I do have a play, but I'll let you finish.
No, that's really. I just think like Ehlinger, he could be the answer. He could be for Texas, and Texas could come out, and it could just be like, man, I never had a chance from the start. Like, sucks to be me. I was just wrong. But I think LSU goes in. I think they get the job done. I think they're the better team. And I think LSU, it might turn out, is actually the second best team in the SEC this year. I think they might be better than Georgia. Like, I just think like LSU was really good last year. They were really good last year. And, they had a couple games that they lost to Florida and whatever. But I think that they're going to find a way to win this game. And at 5 points, if this was like 8, I would take Texas. But at 5, I like LSU to win this in a touchdown game, maybe like a 24-17, something like that. And you're going to go over now, aren't you?
No, I'm actually going to go under.
See, we are in agreement on that, Will. I don't have a bet on it, but I agree with you there.
I just think after both these schools had kind of a field day offensively against inferior opponents, they're both now going to suddenly face a defense that was just so much better than they faced in week 1 and kind of get shocked by it. And both these teams tend to have pretty good defenses. I know Texas, Big 12 school, they will have their fair share of shootouts throughout the season. But LSU in these big games that they play, usually pretty low scoring. We go back to the Miami game last year, 33-17. That is under 52.5. The Auburn game was 22-21. Florida, 27-19. Georgia, 36-16. Those are all under 52.5. Texas A&M, 74-72. So these are all going under.
74-72.
Oh, sorry, 74-72. That's
is that the 7 overtime game?
That went over, actually.
Was that the 7 overtime game?
Yeah.
That was one of the most amazing games I've ever witnessed.
It was amazing. It did go over in regulation, but that's one out of 5 of these kind of big games. I mean, then I think Alabama beat them 29-0. So I mean, I'm just saying when they play big games, their defense steps up. I think it's going to be a grinded out, tough fought game, even though we do have Texas out of the Big 12. I just think it's going to be that style. Even though they both are very high-powered offenses, they're going to have to kind of get adjusted to what a top 10 defense or top 10 schools defense instead of
instead of Louisiana Tech
or Louisiana Tech.
Yeah.
So it's just different,
I agree.
And with the big lights, the big stage, it's going to be a little jittery. Got to get the nerves out. I can see this being like a 3-0 game going into the second quarter.
Yeah, so. I think this kind of follows the same thing as the Miami-Florida game did. It was like, 13-7 going into half. I think you could see something similar to that. But either way, I think you're going under 26 for the first half, which is what would put you at the midway point.
Yeah, hopefully it's under 20 because I do think once the teams kind of get their legs underneath them, they should be able to I see the second half being high scoring. I'm really banking on this kind of maybe field position battle in the first half, playing conservatively, get a good amount of punts in there.
The David Shaw game.
Yeah, that's what we want.
That's what David Shaw likes. He'll watch the tape on that game, even though he doesn't play either of these teams the rest of the year. How much did you have on this? 10?
10.
All right. Well, finally, it took us an hour to get here, but we're going to the Miami game, which, as always, is brought to you by our sponsor, Caneswear. They've got the best selection of Miami Hurricanes gear by far. Hats, jerseys, shirts you can't find anywhere else. Brand new Adidas apparel, plus their own custom clothing, football, baseball, basketball, and so much more. You name it, they got it. So head over to caneswear.com. It's going to be worth buying Miami stuff, I think, this year, Will. And I know if you go on the message boards, and I know Canes Insight, I got so much crap because I picked Florida to beat Miami on canesinsight.com, which you don't do. And I did it. And Florida then wins. And it's kind of like, I mean, if you want to read something funny, go read the 4 pages of just comments on the game, the round table there. It's just everybody ripped me apart, and I deserved it. But you know what? I also predicted that Florida would score 24 points, and they did. I do think, though, everybody else is so down on how this Miami team looked in week 0. And I'm sitting here as somebody who went to Miami from 2010 to 2014, has been following the team since 2010 pretty much. I didn't really watch before that because I'm a Northeast guy. I didn't, college football in New Jersey doesn't exist unless your family went to a big
Rutgers.
School. Yeah, Rutgers. Unless your family went to a big school, you don't really follow it. So for me, I never really followed Miami. And then I watched this game, and I watched Florida score against us. And then I watched us answer. And then I watched Florida score, and then I watched this answer, and I watched Jaron Williams step up in the pocket and make big passes, despite the fact that he had 2 turnstiles on the end there that were just like, hey, as long as you give me a ticket, I'll let you go in and beat the crap out of my quarterback. I don't give a shit. But they're freshmen. And I think they get better. And I think that, you had Jeff Thomas fumbling, and it's heartbreaking because he's, you don't want to see that with Jeff Thomas. Like, that's our guy. But he fumbles that ball. And if that doesn't happen, you gifted Florida a touchdown. And for me, there's hope because normally I'm used to seeing the Clemson game that gets Al Golden fired. I'm used to seeing the Clemson ACC championship game that made me start playing Thumper in a bar before halftime. That's what I'm used to seeing in big games. And this year we answered, and yes, it was sloppy, and yes, Florida was sloppy. And yes, Florida is not a top 10 team, but as far as I'm concerned, they were ranked in the top 10 to start the season. They're going to finish the season in the top 25. And I saw a spark of life from the Canes that I haven't seen in so long. I'm fine with it. I'm okay with it. And I think Miami's going to be all right this year. It's a very favorable schedule, which is going to get us some wins down the line. But we're 6-point favorites against UNC right now, and I really like it. What do you think, Will?
That was quite a speech there. I'm with you in that I'll make a comparison that maybe people will hate, but in the NBA Finals this year, I'm a Golden State Warriors fan. I have been. I grew up in San Francisco and have been my whole life. I didn't just bandwagon. I actually followed them less once they got KD. It really made me upset because we lost a lot of our homegrown feel. Harrison Barnes, who we drafted, Bogut. Anyway, we didn't draft Bogut, but he was a veteran we brought in. We built this team, and this really felt like when we lost the finals after like Klay Thompson tears his ACL in the third quarter, and our whole team is just falling apart. And the Raptors win. It was like, you know what? Good win. Like good on you, buddy. Like we're not going to win them all. And as angry as I've been at some losses, like when LeBron won in 2016, they came back from 3-1. Like that was excruciating. That was a painful loss. The Raptors lost. Hey, no big deal. This is what's happening. And I really had a similar feeling with this Miami-Florida game. It felt like there were so many positives that we can take away. I mean, Deron Williams, just him throwing the ball makes me feel good. Right. It makes me happy. Compared to N'Kosi Perry or Malik Rozier or Stephen Morris or Ja'Cory Harris or anyone who's strapped him up in the last 6-7 years. And so I'm fine that our offensive line sucks because they're freshmen. They're true freshmen too, So, and we almost won. We had chances to win. We
should have won that, but that's
and then we got the interception, and then we go down the field and we had another shot at the end zone. And it's not like we got blown out. It's not like we weren't right there. I mean, we were right there of beating Florida with a freshman offensive line that was miserable. So imagine if they give up 5 sacks. Imagine if they get better, as they will because they're freshmen. They're not just going to stay the same. And I know it is week 2, but we are playing UNC, who's a much, much weaker team. I mean, Florida's defense is one of the, not like a top 5 or maybe top 10 defense, but it's up there in terms of defenses, especially in the front. So all that being said, that loss sucks to lose, but let's have some positive takeaways.
Nobody can have positive takeaways when you're Miami Hurricane diehard. I mean, that's the way I look at it. Everybody, especially you lose to Florida, it sucks because it's a rivalry. We only play them every so often. Last time we played them was our senior year, Will. And
2013, I remember it well. One of my favorite games I've been to.
I don't remember it well at all, but I was there.
I remember. There's a lot of things that went down that game. That was a fun game.
That was a fun game.
So I like, all this being said, I do like the -6 because I think Miami, I do feel overall positive about where we're headed this season, despite a loss. That, does it suck losing? Yeah, but were there a lot of things that you can look at and say, hey, this is better than it has been in 7 years? Yes. Maybe Deron Williams will let me down, but like from what I saw, with how little time he had to get rid of the ball, he made a lot of big throws, and I at least am, kind of holding on to that.
I completely agree with you. Deron Williams was doing things that quarterbacks are supposed to do. He's a redshirt freshman, and he's stepping up in the pocket, throwing darts where they need to go. Even in the end zone, there was that one ball that, who was it? He had it in his hands. It was the tight end. Oh my God, I'm drawing a blank. He had it in his hands, and he dropped it on a diving pass. It was a great thrown ball. And yeah, it's a tough catch, but you hope he can get it. And that Jeff Thomas, it was not a ball Jeff Thomas should catch, but it was exactly where Deron Williams had to be throwing it. He was very accurate in this game, and he looked really good back there, despite the fact that he was under duress the whole time. Malik Rozier and N'Kosi Perry are probably throwing 5 interceptions in that game. And what I liked about Deron Williams is that he did take a more conservative approach. Yes, he did have an impact on some of those sacks. But I'd rather him take a 5-yard loss than chuck up the Ja'Cory Harris rainbow that's just going to sit up in the air for an hour and a half so the defense can camp underneath it and catch it. You know what I'm saying? So that's why I take away a lot of positives here, and I know that the offensive line was dreadful. I know it was bad. But think about it. If this team improves throughout the year, this is the best team we're going to play the entire season until the ACC championship game. And we lost by 4 points and had numerous chances to win, despite the fact that we made so many mistakes.
Like gifted them a touchdown.
Gifted them a touchdown.
Like if that doesn't happen, we win.
How about the 5-second delay a game that doesn't get called and they pick up the first down on a fourth down when they were trying to take it? You know, the teams aren't going to go 5 for 5 on fourth down all season against Miami. I think
they better not.
They go to UNC. UNC just beat South Carolina by 4. That's kind of like a little bit of a rivalry game for them. But Florida's a better team than South Carolina. And it wasn't a home game for Miami. It wasn't a road game either. It was a neutral field game. I think they go to UNC. I think that the offense comes to life. I think they look better. The defensive line for UNC is nothing compared to Florida's. And I like Miami to win this game pretty easily. I got them -6. I got 20 on it. I'm feeling really good about it. And I never feel really good about the Miami Hurricanes, as everybody knows who's on Canes Insight, because I picked Florida to win. And Miami outplayed my expectations so much in that first week. I'm feeling really good about this right now.
You can feel as good as you can after a loss. And not to say losing doesn't suck. Losing to a rival totally sucks. But there are things you look at and say, wow, like with this schedule.
Bubba Baxa missed the field goal. We're lining up for a field goal at the end of the game if Bubba Baxa hits the 30-yarder.
Yeah. There's a lot of things you can point to and be like, we were that one play away from winning this thing. So
yeah,
no reason to burn the city down, fire Manny Diaz. None of that. We're gonna be okay. Whew. We better be okay. We have to cover this. We got to cover this.
We'll talk after this week. This week, if we somehow lose this game to UNC, then we'll talk. But anybody who is wondering if I'm going to go 6-9 or 7-8 in week 1, I'm going to go 6-9 because Louisville is currently beating Notre Dame 14-7. So at least we can get all the Notre Dame hype out of the way right away, and they won't even be in the college football playoff conversation. But yeah, I had them -20. And that's not going to happen.
Much improved.
Yeah.
I mean, I want to see, once we're done here, I'm going to watch the game, but I want to see like this new team because it's that team last year was so bad.
But that's like you said, much improved, but from what?
They weren't like even playing football last year. No. Like now you have the same team, like it's a lot of the same guys, but you have a new coach and they're going to actually attempt to win football games. So that is a big improvement. So I'll take it. It's interesting.
All right, Will, run down your bets.
Oh yeah, let's run them down. Okay. I've got the over in Boise versus Marshall. I got Army +23 at Michigan. I got Kansas State -23.5 against Bowling Green. Cincinnati at Ohio State over 55.5. Iowa -20.5 at Rutgers. Love that. Nebraska at Colorado. Nebraska's +5. Clemson -18 at home against Texas A&M. New Mexico State heading to Bama +54. UCF -10 at FAU. LSU Texas under the 52.5. Nevada at Oregon over 62. And then Miami -6 against UNC.
And how much you got on that one?
15.
And you misspoke earlier, Will, so I'll give you crap. You actually have Colorado +5, not Nebraska +5.
I have Colorado +5. Sorry.
Yes.
It's Nebraska at Colorado +5 for Colorado.
I just wanted to make sure everybody knew. All right. And for myself, I got Boise -11.5, Boise over 55, Pittsburgh -5.5, whole entire village on Syracuse at -1, USF +5.5, Texas A&M +18, Eastern Illinois in the biggest game of the weekend against Indiana at +34, FSU, Louisiana Monroe over 60.5, UCF -10, Georgia State -8.5, North Texas money line at +160, BYU +3.5, LSU -5, Miami -6, Fresno State money line +140. That's our week 2 picks, everybody. Sorry for missing week 1, but we're in it now. We're here. We're back, and we're ready to go.
I need to look at some more money lines. I didn't like. There were a couple I wanted to do. I was like, yeah, the points sound so good. Just getting our feet wet here.
Yeah, Will's a little weak after last year. He was humbled last season early on, and then he had to like build himself up. But we'll see. We'll see. I'll put up Will's actual percentage because I think the 54% might have been a bit generous there, buddy.
I think that was about right. I walked out with like we started with $200, and I walked out with like 280.
Yeah, it was interesting because
it depends if you're counting bets
yeah.
or you're weighting the money. Because I might have like a $10 bet or a $20 bet, and if you're counting those up in total, then the percentage would be different. But I think it's got to be based on how many units you put on it. No?
Well, here's what we got, man. I can look at it right now for you because I have the entire season, so I can tell you if Will finished above 500 or not last year. Got to keep scrolling. All right, Will, you finished the season. Wow. All right, here's the final record for me. I was 88, 65, and 3 and ended the season with $495 out of 200. So that's a good freaking season. Will, you ended with 200 on the dot.
No way. I was up.
I'm looking at it.
Maybe we didn't include bowl season.
We didn't include bowl season. But anyway, Will's up. I just have to throw it in there. I was at 495. What the heck, man?
Yeah, that's really good.
Life.
That seems like it's better than whatever percent you gave yourself. I mean, because we have to look at how much dollars you're putting up.
Yeah, no, you're right. You're right. My percentage of my win percentage, that's the thing. My win percentage was 57.5%, but I almost tripled my money.
Yeah, that's impressive, man. I can't wait for this. I'm feeling good about this season.
Yeah, I'm hoping. I'm off to a bad start. Right now, I'm 2 games below 500, trying to get that back up.
I guess we're not including the week 1 games.
No, we won't include it because we didn't put the money bets down on it.
Yeah, I put real money bets on it, though. I think I won like $1 once the juice was taken out.
I think I'm up $18 on the NFL, on the NCAA season.
Yeah, maybe something like that. All right, well, this season I'm going to beat you, so I'm excited.
There you go. That's what I'm ready for. All right, everybody. We'll see you next week. Bye-bye.
Adios.